everyone, my name is Marie Matheson and welcome to my very first YouTube video. I'm super excited to be here. In this video, I'm going to be introducing myself, talking about a few milestones in my life, and really talking about what the channel is going to bring in the future. So before I go ahead and get started, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, I really appreciate the support, and also putting on the bells because I will be posting a new video on a weekly basis. I am 31 years old and I have dwarfism. I am 3'11" and I live a very independent life. I have 2 little dogs and I am an operations manager at a telecommunications company. When people ask me where I'm from, I always say I'm from Saskatchewan, Canada. But the truth is, I was actually born in Ontario, Canada, and moved to Saskatchewan, Canada, and then back to Ontario, Canada. So at this point in my life, I've actually lived in Ontario more than I've actually lived in Saskatchewan. So I'm going to talk about my dwarfism a little bit. I've never actually been diagnosed, so I'm not sure what type of dwarfism I have. I do know that there's over 400 different types of dwarfisms out there, and all I can say is that I'm extremely grateful because unlike a lot of little people, I didn't grow up with a lot of medical conditions. I know that I had braces on my legs when I was really young, and I knew that the bones in my neck didn't develop properly, but honestly, it's not even something that I remember much of. So I just have to say that I'm extremely grateful because my height has not been a huge hurdle in my life. Even when it came to going to school, was I teased, was I bullied? Absolutely. Sometimes it was directed towards my height, but I am very confident that regardless of the body I was given, I believe that I would have been teased, I would have been bullied. Just the way that we grew up, I feel like it was inevitable. Again, I wouldn't change any of that. I wouldn't change anything about my height. I wouldn't change anything about my past because I believe that everything happens for a reason. And I also believe that it has made me an extremely strong person. So now let's talk a bit about some of the milestones in my life. So firstly, I was born in Ontario, Canada. My mom and biological father had separated when I was very young. I'm not exactly sure of the age I was, but I was a baby. And I'm also not really sure of the custody agreement that they had, but I do know that they both lived in separate places. And when I would go visit my biological father, he would sexually molest me. He did this from when I was a baby up until I was in grade 1. I always felt a bit different about that situation. I had spoken to a lot of, friends or different family members, or, even if I watched something on TV and people would talk about being sexually molested or being sexually abused at all. And I always felt like I felt about my situation different than other people felt about their situations. What I mean by that is, as I grew up, I never had strong emotions when I thought back on what he had done to me growing up. And what I mean by that is I never felt angry towards the situation. I never felt sad towards the situation. I never hated him for what he did. And that always made me feel very guilty. So the bad feelings I would feel about him abusing me as a kid was always guilt. I felt guilty because I didn't feel bad about it. I felt guilty because I never had the same strong emotions as anybody else that I personally knew had when it came to their sexual abuse. So when I was younger, I used to talk about the sexual abuse and I used to tell different people about it. But the older I got, the more I realized how it really makes people uncomfortable, or they feel very sad or very empathetic for me. And I really just disliked that. I didn't want anybody to feel bad. I didn't even feel bad. So I just stopped talking about it. So even though I didn't specifically think back and feel strong emotions about that situation, it for sure impacted me in other ways. So I grew up being a very sexually inappropriate child, and it wasn't until I was around 10 years old that I had a family member come up to me and basically address some of the inappropriate behavior. And I honestly could not be more grateful for that family member because ever since they had come to me and had that conversation, it completely changed my behavior for the better. I'm really happy to say that between the ages of 8 and 10, my mom met a new man and married him. He is now the man that I call dad today. He is the most hardworking, caring, and kind man. I honestly could not have picked a better father if I had the option. He has been the greatest dad since the day he walked into my life, and he is a massive rock in my life, and I am very confident to say that I would not be the person I am today if he did not choose to not only come into my life, but to stay in my life forever. So in any future videos, I just want to be clear, if I ever say my biological father, he is the man who had molested me, and if I ever say my dad, he is the man that raised me, and he is the man who really helped me become the person I am today. So around the age of 10, we packed up and we all moved to Saskatchewan, Canada. We had moved into very small towns. The town that I went to school in had a population of 500, and the school that I lived in had a population of 200. So needless to say, everybody knew everybody and everybody talked about everybody. So soon after moving to Saskatchewan, my mom and dad had separated. They lived together for a while, but eventually my mom did move to the city when she got a new boyfriend. So when I was 12 years old, I got my very first job. That job didn't last very long, but it was a huge milestone in my life because it was when I realized that I wanted to make money. Between the ages of 12 and 15, I did a bunch of random babysitting jobs. Ages of 14 and 15, I made a big mistake. I was talking to a guy online. He was from my class. Him and I weren't friends. We barely ever talked. He was definitely considered one of the cool kids. And even when I think back, I think, why was I talking to him? I don't even remember why he was on my MSN at the time. But either way, what I do remember is he had asked me to flash him. And I said no a couple times, but he kept asking, and eventually I just did it. And it was humiliating because he immediately shut the camera off, laughed profusely in the chat, and took me off of MSN. The next day when I had went into school, I will never forget, I walked into the gymnasium and a bunch of people from my class were just huddled around talking. And when I came in, another guy from my class basically called me out in front of everybody, and I was so humiliated. I just lied through my teeth. I denied it completely. Even when one of my good friends at the time came up to me and was like, hey, I'm here for you. Like, you can talk to me about it. It's okay. I just lied to her, and I never told anybody until I was an adult. And even then, there's very few people that I've shared that with up until now. So luckily, it was close to the end of the school year. And since my mom had actually moved to the city to live closer to her boyfriend, I was given the option from my parents to either move to the city and live with my mom or continue to live in that small town with my dad and my little sister. And I did not think twice. I packed my stuff up and moved to the city with my mom. I lost all my friends that were in the small towns, and I had 2 friends in the city, so I just gravitated towards them. So between the ages of 15 to 17, I graduated high school, and between the ages of 15 to 21, I worked 2 different jobs. They did overlap for a little bit, but I was obligated to choose one of them because the schedules were conflicting. So outside of graduating high school and working 2 jobs, I will just summarize between the ages of 15 to 21 and say, I partied hard and I lived in fog and I was extremely unhealthy. At the age of 21, there were some events that had happened in my life which led me to move back to Ontario. I moved closer to one of my family members. This family member had been trying for years to get me to move out. I know that the family member that I was moving closer to was really hoping that I would walk a straighter line and live a healthier life, but unfortunately, everything that I was doing out there in Saskatchewan just followed me to Ontario. And it wasn't until the age of 22 when I got arrested that things actually started to change a bit. Now, I didn't change things easily. It was definitely an obligated change. And I'll also say it wasn't me digging deep into my mental health or digging deep into the past. It was really surface work. So from the ages of 23 to 29, I was in a long-term relationship, and to summarize it, I was still just living for the weekend. And as much as I wasn't going as hard as I was in the past, I was just filling this void, whether it be with alcohol, whether it be with food, whether it be with products, whether it be with electronics. I'd also started at the company that I'm at today at the age of 23. And I started at the bottom of the company and was able to move up to an operations manager. I have always felt very passionate about the work that I've done, and I always give 100% when I'm there. I always love learning new things and taking risks and really just being the best employee that I can be, and more importantly, the best leader that I can be. Between the ages of 29 to 31, I was even more unhealthy and still living for the weekend, and I was personally clearly unhappy. And I don't think maybe people around me knew it as much, but I had been able to fill this void for all of my life, and I just wasn't able to fill it. And then 2020 hit. Now 2020 wasn't all bad for me. I definitely had some good times. There were definitely some laughs, but overall, like most of you out there, 2020 was the worst year of my life. It was full of more emotion than I've ever felt. It was full of more negativity than I've ever been around, and it ended very tragically. After the tragic ending, I was in a very dark place. I had already not been in a good place for years, but I was in an extra dark place because of everything that had happened in 2020. It had really forced me to reevaluate my life and to figure out not just what I wanted, but who I wanted to be. And I'm not going to go through it all right now, but I will just happily say that for the first time in my life, I have now seen the light. I have felt happiness that I've never felt before. This channel is a way that I can share with you the journey that I'm currently on now. It's still early in the year, we're only in March, but I have seen so many incredible changes in just a short period of time. And for the first time in my life, like I had said, I can see the light, and I am just happy. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm happy every single day. That's not what I mean. I mean, I am more happy now with my life and where I am, and feel pure joy at times, which I've never ever experienced without there being a substance of some sorts to make me feel that way. I just have to say thank you so much if you made it this far into the video. I really do appreciate your support. If you don't mind, go and click that subscribe button. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye.